Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Bebop here. Today's video, we're going to be talking about the Greatsword. We're also going to be talking about what weapons you can pair with the Greatsword that will help you out in dungeons and, let's say, the Hive. So let's just get right on into it. First of all, we are going to be looking at the Greatsword. Now, if you have Serenity, or if you plan on running M3s, especially with Group Finder when it comes out, good lord, that's going to be fun. You really want to grind for Serenity, okay? It's the best greatsword in the game, and really, if you're going to greatsword, that's really the only way to go. Now, I will show you different options in case you don't have it yet and you're currently grinding out the PvP track. But what makes this one so good is basically you're going to be in power capped all the time, especially when you're not tanking with it, but when you are DPSing with it. Right here, Balanced Blade. In the offensive stance, get 2+ in power per attack for 5 seconds, max 10 stacks. In the defensive stance, you get 2% fortify when hit for 5 seconds, max 10 stacks. So this is really good for DPS, and it's really good for tanking, and it's really the tanking meta weapon during the main part of the dungeons right now. Now, when you rank this weapon up, you will have to add a gem slot, but it comes with Trenchant Strikes, Trenchant Crits, which is an illegal perk combo, and then Refreshing Move. Now, how do you want to spec this out? In my opinion, going to 350 dex is better than the split stack of strength and dex. If you go split stack of strength and dex, you can hit an overall higher number, but consistently with the 350 dex and also always being empowered, you're going to have non-stop criticals, and that's what's going to help take advantage of the Trenchant Crits. To pair clothing with the Greatsword, you want to have one piece of clothing that has Relentless Freedom on it. This will help you increase your critical chance when using Relentless Rush by 13%. And also it will unroot you if you're in an ice mutation or a nature mutation, or if you're in PvP and you get rooted, then you can unroot yourself with the Relentless Freedom. Now, another piece that's really good to have is Slowing Rupture. This is more, I guess, you probably don't use Rupture in PvP, but at least in PvE, slowing enemies struck with Roaring Ruptures by 25% for 5 seconds is really good. Because if you look in the skill or in the attribute tree, there's a dot that helps people do more damage to any enemies that are slow, stun, or rooted. But really, we're looking at the slowed here. 10% damage to slowed enemies. So that's going to help anybody in the group that has this dot on the strength tree. Now we're going to look at the other pieces of clothing. I have Enchanted Ward Refreshing and Health. Enchanted Ward Refreshing and Health. I have Relentless Freedom on these Attuned Leather Pants because that's usually what I run when I'm using the Greatsword. So to make this better, applying this right here is also going to give me Slowing Rupture on this build. And I'm 4 out of 4 refreshing. That is what you want. Freedom, Enchanted Ward, and Health. Health is really big to have, in my opinion, when you're running the Greatsword. Anytime you're in onslaught stance with the Greatsword, you will take 15% more damage. That means you're going to be having incoming damage at 15% greater rate. So you're going to get hurt a lot faster. It's the easiest weapon to get knocked to. I'm at 233 strength, 350 dex, 25 int, 25 focus. It's well rounded. You don't have to necessarily go 25 focus. That's just something I kind of rounded up to in case you wanted to, depending on which weapon you're going to use. 50 con, because it's a really good base for a lot of people. 350 dex to take advantage of the 15% critical chance while empowered, which is also going to help you with the Trenchant Crits, 34% critical damage. 5% damage to increase backstabs and random critical hits. Very important. Now, if you take better food or whatnot, you can get up here. That's cool. Right now, I'm taking 36 dex food. Not trying to go all crazy for the video because food is expensive right now. All right, now let's look at the Heart Rune. I'm running Cunning Heart Rune of Firestorm. It's usually what I always run. It's going to help apply a nice dot, give allies some haste. With the amulets, you necessarily don't have to have empowerment. You're always going to have empowerment with the Greatsword. Anytime you do Relentless Rush and you hit an enemy, you know, you're empowered. With the amulet, you could choose a lot of different things. I like Divine and Health when I'm running the Greatsword. Any incoming healing plus extra health is really beneficial with the Greatsword. Like I said, it's the easiest weapon to get knocked to. Empowerment, you're always going to be empower capped with Serenity. At least if you're running a regular greatsword, you can go with empowered on the amulet to extend your empowerment. But with Serenity, I would just go divine and health and you'll be just fine, and whatever protection for whatever you're doing. Leeching, hardy, and keen awareness, you don't need slash damage ring with the Serenity. So instead, you go keen awareness to help get you more critical chances. Why I love running Serenity in the Hive, because those bosses really don't have backs. I mean, technically the first boss does, but only on stand break phase, and the second boss is just moving so dang much, and it's a weird hitbox. It's hard to hit, so that helps out a lot. On the earring, you definitely want to go fortified toast. Refreshing toast, healing heart. Like I said, you do take 15% more damage when you are in onslaught stance. So fortifying health potion, or taking a health potion or a regen potion or a mana pot on potion, gain 20% fortify for 8 seconds, 10-second cooldown. That's just huge. Healing heart, in case you get in trouble and your health drops really low and your potion on cooldown, you can at least hit your heart rune and get some health. And with divine, it's going to help bring in a little bit more health. So that's a good combo right there. When we look at the greatsword skill tree, I will do the tanking setup first, and then I will go to DPS. Tanking setup, you're going to want to run like this. Now, when you are tanking with the greatsword, make sure you do not pick this. When you pick this, any heavy you do is going to put you in onslaught stance. That means you're going to take 15% more damage increase. If you know what you're doing and you're very experienced in tanking and you're with a good crew and you're trying to score run or speed run, it's different. I'm making this video for the newer player or an average player just trying to survive and do the best they can. Okay. There's times when we used to speed run that you're going to want to do damage as a tank, and not doing damage as a tank is really just slowing the whole group down. But you also need to be able to survive, okay? But just avoid picking this. Then you want to pick this Relentless Rush. Gain 10% in power for 10 seconds after hitting a target with Relentless Rush. Reduce ability cooldown by 50% when you kill a foe. After dodging, gain 10% in power for the next 3 hits within 10 seconds. Attacks empowered by this effect restore 10 stamina on hit. And then you want to go hitting foes reduces greatsword cooldowns, light attacks 2%, which you never do light attacks with greatsword, and charge heavy attack 10%. Now, if you want to go full tanky tank, you could maybe pick this side if you want to. I don't ever go this side. I don't know any tank that greatsword tanks that's ever gone this side. Really, this to get the cooldowns is so much more beneficial. The quicker you can get your taunts and your cooldowns, the better. The health is going to be coming from your healer and also your amulet if you have divine on it as a tank. I think it's highly important. And really getting your cooldowns faster will help sustain your life better than healing for this minimal effect. Okay. So, and that's in my opinion. So that's how I go here. We have the Roaring Rupture. You're going to get 10% fortify for 7 seconds for each foe hit, max 3 stacks. So usually about 30 fortify. You get rid of 2 debuffs when you hit the Roaring Rupture. Shockwave is going to apply a 10% weaken on hit. And additionally, after successful hit, becoming interruptible for 5 seconds. In Defiant Stance, Shockwave pushes foes away. In Onslaught Stance, the Shockwave doesn't do a damn thing anymore since Eternal. They ruined it, but it's supposed to pull the enemies towards you, but it doesn't. Calamity Counter is going to be your taunt, and it's going to help block a lot of damage, okay? Base damage increase 3% for each greatsword buff on you. Max 4. Charge heavy attacks have grit and inflict bleeding for 6 seconds, dealing 5% weapon damage per second. Then over here you have charge heavy attacks, 15 armor penetration, increases damage 15% against attacking foes that are above 90% health. Gain 20% haste for 5 seconds when hitting a target with an onslaught tree ability. After going into onslaught stance, your next attack within 5 seconds has a 100% critical hit chance. It's really good when you're about to finish off an enemy. You can relentless rush and then go ahead and hit for a 100% critical chance and get more damage. Become energized, landing critical hits, regening 5 stamina, 5 base health per second. Critical hit chance is increased by 10% when attacking foes with an active debuff. All right, so what does this look like in combat? Well, let's go down here and do this. Now, when I come down here and I aggro, well, I don't have a Carnelian, so I guess this guy don't give a shit about it. I mean, I'm here, bro. I mean, hello. This guy cares. Now, when I swing, I have that little blue shield in front of me. And notice the swings of the sword are a lot slower in the defensive stance than in the onslaught stance. So let's say if I do this, let's say do that, and I'm in the defensive stance and I'm swinging, pay attention to the speed. Now, if I go into onslaught stance, it is a quicker speed, but you are now susceptible to 15% more damage. So when you go up to an enemy, you could rupture and then go ahead and start hitting. And then when you need to re-aggro, let's say the mobs, you could taunt like this. They can come up and hit you all day, but you will not take damage. That blue shield you see in front of me, that will protect you from any hits incoming. That's why you see Greatsword tanks. We just go ahead and get that blue shield in front of us and we just start swinging away. It will protect us a lot. Now let's go over the Greatsword skill tree for DPS. It's going to look almost the same over here a little bit. And then we're going to come here. We're going to go there. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and boom. All right. That's what we're going to do here. Now, why don't I go here? Well, this is to apply rend, and it's also to stagger the enemy if they're about to throw, like I say, one of the gorillas in Savage Divide is about to throw a big chunk of ice or whatever. You can stagger them and they'll drop it. But it's to apply the rend. Now, let's look at how you apply the rend. It's very important. If you are just in a regular stance and you apply the Skyward Slash, it's only going to stack 2 rends at 5%, so 10% rend. If you're in onslaught stance, it will apply an additional 1% or an additional 1 rend, so that will be 15%. So you want to make sure that you are in the onslaught stance and then you apply your rend. Okay, that's how you want to do that. Right here, anytime you hit a heavy, you will be in the onslaught stance. So what does this look like in combat? Let's look. I'll show you. So let's say our tank is going to pull some mobs. Let's see if we can find one around here somewhere. Hello, gorillas. Hey, here's a guy. A lot of times I will come up, I'll relentless rush, and then next thing you know, they're about to attack or whatnot. I'll stack the 3 rends on them, and then you can just start swinging away. Now, if you wanted to just come up, apply 2 stacks of rend, go ahead and weaken the enemy, and then you can relentless rush to get back into your offensive stance, plus get a guaranteed critical. You could do it that pattern too. Those are the 2 ways to set up your greatsword. Once for tanking and once for DPS. Why not crosscut? And why not steadfast strike? Both are PvP abilities. They are not PvE abilities. Those are PvP. Really good for PvP. Steadfast strike. And then the crosscut can do a lot of damage. Has grit when you pick this dot underneath it. And then you can apply more damage with this dot, but that's a PvP ability. If you get caught up doing the animation in a M3 or whatnot, you can't cancel it. You're going to get knocked. And that's why you don't want to do that. Plus, this setup has always been the best for applying rend, applying the weaken, pulling mobs together, which it used to do, and then go ahead and get into your onslaught stand and start doing your damage. What weapons are we going to pair with the greatsword? Well, with this greatsword setup, a lot of times in M3s, people will run a great axe with the greatsword. I can't stand it. I don't like it. When people ask me to run great axe with the greatsword, I want to tell them to kick rocks in a very nice way. I don't like it because you don't have any CC. And with the greatsword, especially serenity, you will walk in a room and get aggro just because you have serenity. It is so weird. I'm not really sure what the mechanic is behind it. I know there's a regen ability here with health, you know, that does apply a little bit of threat, but it's just weird how that works with serenity. So you just got to be very careful. If you get in trouble and you don't have any CC, obviously now you do have reap to go ahead and stagger, But if you need a block for a couple different enemies, you rupture and you hold block. All right. This will give you a lot of blocking stamina. You are in defiant stance. You will be able to block a lot of hits like this and hold off until the tank gets there and you're over there freaking out. Tank, what the hell are you doing, bro? Stop picking flowers, bro. I'm dead. So what weapons can you pair in a dungeon? Well, if you're 350 dex set up and not split stack with strengthened dex, there's a couple different things you could do. I mean, you could run a blunderbuss just for the burst damage and the, let's say, plague splitting grenades in any dungeon where they have vampiric abilities or healing auras that are dropped when enemies are killed. You could just run this. Now you're not going to be doing as much damage in the 350 dex range. I would adjust my stats once I put that on, but you could just simply do a grenade shot, shrapnel shot, and then blast, and then you're right there onto your greatsword. You would apply rend, you would apply burning dots, and a little bit of damage. What other weapon is really good with this loadout? I mean, you could even rock a spear if you wanted to. Now, a lot of people will say, why are you rocking a spear with the greatsword? 2 main hands, because of CC. With the spear, you can have the, you know, skewer, you can have perforate, and you can have the sweep. That way you can keep them off of you and then go right back to your greatsword. Another thing you could do is also have a Sundering Javelin, Keen and Vicious Spear. That way you could Sundering Javelin an enemy right off rip, get the rend going heavy, and then you can go on to your greatsword, but you still have the option to have a sweep or a kick to stun enemies that might come near you, because you will get aggro with Serenity 100%. You could also rock a hammer. A lot of tanks are going in sword, shield, and greatsword while tanking. So if you don't have a hammer in a group, you don't have a lot of rend. You're missing out on CC and rend. Okay, so having a hammer is really good to also apply CC. You can use shockwave, you could use clear out, you can use armor breaker on a mob and then get right to the greatsword and you'll be good to go. Or you could use the wrecking ball. I would say, since your DPS, keep the armor breaker, shockwave, and clear out. On the hammer, you want Sundering Clear Out. On the clothing, you would hope to have Sundering Shockwave if that's something you run quite often. Now, in the 350 dex mark, you can also have a bow. Now, with the bow, what would you want to do? Well, on this bow, I have Enfeebling Poison Shot. Poison Shot applies weaken, reducing target's damage by 28% for 6 seconds. So I would simply just run up. I would weaken whatever enemy I think needs to be weakened. I would hit Rain of Arrows, and then I get right into my greatsword. All right, I'm not sitting there on the bow all day. I'm not turning into Bobot. Those would be the weapons I would say you could use with the greatsword. Other than that, not really fond of any other weapons that you might want to use with the greatsword. Now, if you have a regular greatsword like this one right here, well, not like that one. That one's terrible. Let's say you have this you bought in the marketplace. It has Trenchant Strikes, Flame Attunement. You really always want Trenchant Strikes on your greatsword when you're buying it from the marketplace. Then you could run the Artifact Rapier behind you, and at least you'd get the 15% more damage, you know, on top of using the greatsword to help you out. Won't be Serenity numbers, but it'll still be really good. Trenchant Strikes, Shuriken Arcane, whatever. And then Plague Strikes. This will be great in any vampiric or dungeon where the enemies are healing themselves. So those would be the weapons I would run with. Mainly for me, it's going to be the hammer or the spear. I'll leave the great axe for the spear player. If we need a second great axe, then I can throw it on. You just got to be really careful. Well, if you liked the video, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next video. If you have any recommendations for any videos, feel free to leave it in the comments. Have a good day and New Year. Later.